Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, up, talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop.
Pull up a seat. You're now in Corey's Corner, where right conversations matter. I'm your host, Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Today's episode is a powerful one because we're talking about something that touches just about every New Yorker: housing. Not just policy, we're talking lived experience, leadership, and real impact. We've got a special guest in the building, Miss Alicka Ampry-Samuel. She's the Deputy Commissioner for Asset and Property Management at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. Yeah, that's a big title, but what it really means is she's on the front lines protecting and preserving affordable housing across the city. But here's what makes her story different. She's not just making decisions from behind a desk. She grew up in NYCHA housing in Brooklyn. Wow. So when she speaks on housing, it's not theory, it's a lived experience. From serving on New York City Council to leading at HUD to now shaping policy that impacts thousands, her journey is one of purpose, resilience, and real service. So today, we're going to talk about housing, community, and leadership, and what it really takes to create change from the inside. Alicka, welcome to Corey's Corner, sis.
Thank you for having me, Corey.
Been waiting for you to pop up.
I'm here.
Finally made it to the corner.
I'm here.
This episode of Corey's Corner is brought to you by Vodka. Vodka is the world's first premium blend of vodka and tequila infused into one smooth, unforgettable spirit. Whether you're celebrating success or unwinding after a long week, choose the spirit that's refined in the game. Visit vodka.net for more information. And remember, always drink responsibly. Shout out to Corrupt Mob MC, a brotherhood built on loyalty, respect, and community. More than a motorcycle club. Respect the mob. All right, let's get into it. Oh, man, I'm so excited. Before we get into your career and everything you're doing now, take us back. What was life like growing up in Brownsville, your school days, and how did your family shape the women that you become today?
That's how we started?
Yeah, we going hard. Wow. You do know that I was the commanding officer
I know.
of PSA 2.
I do.
And I had all the projects or housing developments
I know.
in Crown Heights, East New York, and Brownsville. So let me tell you a little bit about Brownsville. And you know I'm not from Brownsville, just what I know about Brownsville. And Brownsville people get mad at me. I think Brownsville is the most dangerous place in New York City. Violent, when I say in terms of violence. And you know why I say that? And this is what brings them back. Because it's, a little less than 1 square mile, right? But you got 12 housing developments there. I remember the time it was just a one bank, one Dunkin' Donuts. Nobody's investing in the community. Obviously, it's a lot better now. But pre-World War II, when they built those housing developments, people don't know, they built them for the soldiers to come home. They never forecast 70, 60 years later, it was going to be a bunch of, people living in low-income housing and have generational beefs. Van Dyke can't cross Tilden. Tilden can't. Thank God they knocked down Prospect. What they knocked down Prospect that was over there, right up on the hill. So let's talk about them early days in Brownsville.
Let's talk about it. So, first I'd like to tell people that I am 4th generation Brownsville.
Wow.
So my great-grandmother and her sisters moved to Brownsville in 1934, Corey.
Wow.
From Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
So when I talk about my love for Brownsville, it's because that's all I know.
Right.
And there's generations of it. And it's just interesting when people think about Brownsville and you might hear violence. That's actually not how I see Brownsville. That's not my lens. That's not my experience.
That's because you living in it.
I guess so.
You was living in it. The people from the outside, they have to come visit it, and then they hear the crazy stories. You know?
It's the stories, right? And that's a narrative that I have always tried to change because I grew up in Marcus Garvey houses, 1400 East New York Avenue, apartment 6A.
Wow, Marcus Garvey.
And my mother was the first tenant, the first person in that apartment because it was built in 1975. right?
Wow.
But I just want to go back real quick because my mother lived on Prospect before Prospect Plaza. My mother lived on Prospect when it was the Prospect Market.
Okay.
And so all of the stories that I remember my mother telling me was based on this is a community, Brownsville was a village,
Right.
and how fun it was and how
Yes.
people worked together. And so growing up in the projects in Marcus Garvey houses, it was everybody looking out for one another.
Right.
When I was leaving out of the building, going to school, people was saying, "Good morning, Tanny," and making sure that I got back in the house safely.
Yeah.
Because I was a latchkey kid.
Right.
But I remember Brownsville going from one development to the next, doing dances during Brownsville Day. That's not the Brownsville that people see today
Right.
or the stories that's told.
Yeah.
But I had an amazing experience growing up in Brownsville with a mother that was loving. Father had some issues with drugs, wound up, dying when I was in high school. But they cared and they provided us with safe housing. So when I left school and came back home, I came home to a welcoming environment.
I love it. It's nice you say all those things because it mirrors exactly what Assemblywoman Latrice Walker
Oh, my
said.
sister? My
Your
sister Latrice?
Yes, your sister Latrice actually spoke about how Brownsville was such a loving place with her growing up, her brothers and her parents and stuff. And so see, people that don't live in Brownsville, obviously when I was talking about most dangerous, I'm talking from a police perspective because the numbers don't lie in the violence. But it's not even as violent as it was when, the crack era. It's nowhere near. But Brownsville is a very interesting place. You grew up in Marcus Garvey houses. And for the record, I can't even remember a lot of crime in Marcus Garvey. It was Van Dyke, Tilden, Unity.
What is this crime you talk about?
I don't have to talk about it no more, but damn it, Brownsville used to stress me out. They had me at Comstock every day about Comstock. You kind of answered, I was going to ask you, how did your lived experience shape your passion for housing while growing up?
So I grew up in public housing, right? But when I got to high school, my mother applied for one of those housing lotteries.
Yeah, the ones
Remember it was in the newspaper before where you had to put a stamp on an envelope and mail it in so they could return the application. And so my mother was able to move into one of those renovated project-based Section 8 buildings.
Right.
So we moved from 1400 East New York Avenue to 1169 East New York Avenue, 3 blocks down the street. But we moved from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom.
Right.
But it was all still affordable housing,
right?
Based on my mother's income, my mother's retired school safety.
Right.
And so that experience of growing up in the NYCHA developments and then moving down the street to one of those affordable housing Section 8 buildings, it was again in my mind safe, affordable, clean housing that my mother was able to keep with her job, working as a school safety agent and raising her children. And so for me, housing was always important because I also saw people not as fortunate, people being evicted or like put out and going into shelters. And so for me, I just always knew that if you go to school, the number one thing that you're supposed to do from my mother is provide a shelter, provide housing for your family.
Right.
And that was just always something that I grew up with, understood, and it was a priority for me.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to your mother.
May she rest in peace?
Yes.
Yes.
As Deputy Commissioner at New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, what does your day-to-day responsibility look like?
My day-to-day. Every day is different.
Before we came on, we was talking and you was telling me, like, man, I'm working so hard right now. You would think people looking and say, Deputy Commissioner, they don't work.
Oh, I work. I work. This is New York City. And New York City is having a lot of challenges with affordable housing. And so within my unit of asset and property management, I am overseeing working with amazing city workers. But within my portfolio was the Mitchell-Lama buildings.
Mitchell-Lama, Rochdale Village.
Right.
What's the one in the Bronx?
Oh, man. In the Bronx, you
the
big
got, one that looks just like
Co-op City.
Co-op City.
Co-op City, State Mitchell-Lama. But you got Tracy Top. Anyway, the Michelama portfolio. And then we have all of those. Remember the TIL buildings, the tenant interim lease buildings,
Right.
where families were living in these buildings for so many years, and they had an opportunity to become an HDFC co-op, right? That's within my portfolio. Then we have all of the buildings that have rent regulatory agreements with the city. And so within my portfolio alone is over 210,000 units of affordable housing.
Wow.
And then we have my property management division, which is responsible for all of the vacant land, vacant lots that the city owns,
Right.
Vacant buildings with, it's just been in our portfolio for many, many, many years. And so it's such a massive portfolio. So every single day is something different, because our landlords are experiencing challenging times that they've never seen before because of the increase in insurance costs, the cost of building supplies to even maintain buildings, to help renovate and just maintain apartments. We came out of COVID where families had lost jobs, have different type of health issues, not able to pay their rent. And so if an owner of a building is not receiving that same rental income, which was revenue for them like they did years ago, how are they able to maintain these units? And so every day is a challenge. But with this administration right now, under the Mamdani administration, there's a lot more attention focused on preservation and not just new construction. So my world is preservation, and that's what I'm excited about.
All right. Well, what are your top priorities right now?
Right now, top priority is making sure that the owners that we have partnerships with are able to maintain their buildings. And so providing them with technical assistance, providing them with trainings, providing them with information and resources to figure out what are the needs for your building. And so just making sure that we are working with our landlords to help them stabilize the buildings.
All right, so I'm gonna give you some pushback. We see on the news.
Pushback.
We see on the news all the time these slum landlords. They ain't fixing the buildings. They ain't got no heat in there. In the wintertime, summer rats is taking over. Is that under your purview too? I think it is.
No, you know what? I'll say this, right? So
and I know those could be
you have
one-offs.
good actors and you have bad actors, right?
Yes.
And just like you just said, right? Those are, I'm not even gonna say there's a one-offs, right? But those are the people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
We are holding them accountable.
Okay.
And we are.
Because it like hurts me to my heart when I see that stuff, especially in the wintertime. You know, the winter, it pulls at the strings. It's like 5 below zero. You turn on the TV, and this lady with her 2 kids is wrapped up in coats, and there's no heat. And I'm like, damn, what are they going to do about that? So I'm happy that you're there, and I know you know nonsense, and whatever comes across your desk that you can take care of, you're going to take care of it. We got to get rid of them type of landlords. But some of them be having hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. I don't know what the process is, but like, what's the number? Like, they got $200,000 in fines. We can't take the building from them.
So,
but it's New York City. The court system is a mess too.
I was just about to say there are so many things that are happening at the same exact time, right? And there are definitely bad actors out there, but then there are definitely people who are doing the right thing and that are struggling.
Right.
And they got into the housing, like this housing space, the housing industry, because they wanted to provide affordable housing for residents across New York City.
Right.
And those are the people that we want to help. But we also want to make sure that we're listening to the tenants that live in those buildings as well, to figure out how do we help them? What is going on with those individuals as well? And it's going to take, and I keep going back to this new administration, because it's a different energy, right? There is more focus on tenant protection, and that's what you need, right? It's not business as usual.
Right.
It's not. And there's a famous rapper that said, "Yesterday's price is not today's price." That's real. Costs have increased.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But the cost of living, like just the amount of wages that people bring home is not keeping up with what we're actually seeing.
Not in New York City.
And those are the things that we have to address, I think, holistically. And is not just housing, but it's also just meeting families where they are. but figuring this out together.
What do you see as the biggest threat to preserving affordable housing today?
Outside of the cost of insurance, which I think is ridiculous, but also to the increase in utility costs.
Everything is up.
Everything is up. You know, people are paying a lot more in just electricity. But in also, like I said before, building supplies. In order to actually go out and purchase the supplies to do any type of little renovation in your building, those costs are astronomical. Fuel costs, fuels within my department, because we also pay fuel costs for city-owned buildings. And we have seen the fuel costs triple.
Wow.
Just since last year.
Triple.
And so there's so many drivers right now. And another huge piece of it is the court system. We have to figure out a way to not just clear the dockets, but have justices that understand nonprofit partners, nonprofits who own buildings, operate buildings, maintain buildings, and separate them out from the for-profit building owners. Like, that's a big part of it as well.
From your perspective, where's the biggest gap between housing policy and what residents actually experience?
Oh, you know, as a former legislator.
Yes.
Right. Like, I went to law school because I wanted to draft policy and legislation that had a real impact on the people. But I also know that we have a lot of local laws that make a whole lot of sense, that protect a whole lot of families. But a lot of those laws that building owners have to remain in compliance with were passed as unfunded mandates. There is a real impact on the policies that we're seeing today, and the fact that it's very difficult to adhere to some of our local laws because the funding is just not there.
Right.
To make sure that, you know, you want to make sure that these apartments are lead free, right?
Right.
But we also know, because of all of the different local laws that are in place, sometimes a unit can be vacant and it will cost north of $50,000 to renovate that unit for another family to move in, just because of the regulations around that particular unit having to be in compliance with local laws.
Right.
And so policy is real, but we also have to make sure that when we're looking at budgets across the city and the state, we are providing the financial resources to make sure that those units are safe for families in a way that doesn't put that type of pressure and stress and strain on the owners, in particular, like specifically like our nonprofit partners.
Right. Like you said, you was a former councilman. In 2021, your race against Darlene Mealy, it was seen by many as an upset, unexpected upset when she won. How did you process that loss personally and politically? And what did that moment teach you about navigating the realities of local politics?
That's a good question, Corey.
Yeah.
Wow.
The producer in Corey's Corner, they tight. And I know Darlene Mealy personally also, and it was unexpected to me. I did not think that she was going to be, but politics is politics.
Politics is politics, and all politics is local.
Exactly.
So I ran for New York City Council in 2005.
Right.
And I was fresh out of law school. I graduated from law school in June, and I ran in that summer for New York City Council. And I obviously was not elected in 2005. But I continued to show up for my community, continue to show up for Brownsville and New Yorkers in so many different ways. And when there was an opportunity to run 12 years later because of term limits in 2017, I ran for the seat again.
Yes.
And was successful. It was term limits.
Right.
And which is why I love term limits. But it was an opportunity for me to be a real voice, especially for families and young people that was born and raised in Brownsville proper, came out of the projects.
That's right.
And be a true voice. And I had an amazing 4-year experience as a member of the New York City Council. But first 2 years, 2018, 2019, we hit the ground running.
Right.
And then 2020, boom,
COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
2020, 2021 was all COVID.
Yes.
And running for re-election, coming out of a pandemic.
Right.
And I know personally 38 people. I stopped counting at 38 people
Right.
who I know and loved and had relationships with.
Right.
38 people I know died of COVID.
Wow.
And my mom, transitioned in November of 2020.
Wow.
And so it was a real eye opener. And in 2021, when I ran for re-election and I wasn't chosen,
Right.
I realized that I was supposed to be in the council for the time that I was there.
Right.
And it was me opening up my mind for the next assignment.
Right.
Like everything in life is an assignment.
That's
like we're
right.
on a journey.
You gotta shut the
Living-
door.
We're human
can't
beings
be sitting
living
down
a
and
human
crying.
experience,
Gotta
right?
move.
And so I was disappointed
Right.
by not being reelected, but I also understood. I was running against someone who was in office for
12
a very
years.
long
For
time.
12 years,
And
yes.
she was also, and still is, a district leader.
Right.
Or as a state committee member. And so that was always a possibility.
Yes.
But I was very, 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 very excited about the phone call I received the next day from my
Well,
US
hold on. Don't be taking my thunder here. Don't be taking my thunder.
But it was an experience,
It was
and it
an
was time to.
experience.
It was clearly it was meant for me to move to my next.
You said
assignment.
something very important, and I truly believe that too. Life is about chapters. That chapter closed. Close the door. I ain't got no time to be crying. What's up next?
Definitely
just
not
keep
crying.
going.
I'm from Brownsville, man.
What's the motto? Brownsville.
Never ran, never will.
Never ran, never will. So, I didn't know it was the next day, but the next day,
The very next
you
day.
get you get a call from presidential administration, President Joe Biden, to serve as regional administrator at HUD. What did that vote of confidence mean to you, and how did it reshape your path in public service? Because you had just came out of public service, you had the little setback, probably was like, I got my law degree, I'm about to go out here and get this money, then boom, the next day, they call you back into public service.
So prior to city council, I was a chief of staff to my state assemblywoman, right? And prior to me serving as chief of staff to Assemblywoman Walker, I worked at the U.S. Embassy in West Africa. I worked for the State Department,
Okay.
and I was a democracy and human rights officer for the United States Department of State.
Okay.
And after that role, I became a communication specialist for United States Agency for International Development, USAID.
Okay.
So I spent 3 years in West Africa working for the U.S. government.
Okay.
And Latrice called me and said, I'm running for state assembly.
Right.
Would you come and work with me on my campaign?
Uh-huh.
Hands down, absolutely.
Two Brownsville women.
And I tell that story because I've done so many different things throughout the course of my career
Right.
since graduating from college
Right.
in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
And so being a member of the New York City Council was a piece of that.
Right.
And so to receive the nomination from the majority leader, U.S. Senator Schumer, to receive the nomination from him,
Yes.
sent it to the president, Joe Biden, and then get the appointment from the president. That wasn't something I was tracking, but it made sense when you look at my resume.
Right, I
It
was
makes
getting ready
sense
to
when
say.
you look at the things that I've
Exactly.
done before that.
Right.
And so
But some people don't get these opportunities. They get them because the connections. But as you sit here on Corey's Corner and you laying down that foundation, you was, in some eyes, probably to say, overly qualified for the position.
I mean, definitely. Honestly speaking,
Did you see some of these appointments in administration today? They ain't nowhere near to have the resume. So
no,
congratulations to you.
I know. I appreciate that. But so for me to receive that telephone call the very next day, it was hard. obviously it was emotional, right? Because it was the next. But it was also for me confirmation that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what's next, but I truly believe that when you wake up in the morning and you just thank the Most High, you thank God, whoever guides you, thank that higher power, that higher being for waking up, and then just ask that simple question, what's next for me?
Right.
Lead me to what you will have me to do. That's how I live my life every single day. And so that's what allows me to show up in these spaces and do what I do. If it's just for 2 years or 4 years, whatever the time frame is,
Right.
I go back to it's an assignment. It's what I'm here to do. And I'm thankful to know what I'm what I'm supposed to be doing every single day. But that particular appointment from President Biden was just confirmation that the path that I'm on is where I'm supposed to be.
I love it. I love it. Congratulations. Having worked at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, how do federal housing policies align or clash with the local realities in New York City?
So when they align, they align.
And when
I don't
they
even want to
don't?
talk about politics, right? But when they align, they align.
Yes.
And you can feel it.
Okay.
You can see it.
Okay.
Everybody's moving and working together. And when they don't align, you feel it. And right now, we're feeling the pressures, right? We're feeling the federal policies from HUD with the threats of decreasing the number of Section 8 vouchers, right? Decreasing the amount, like even now, the EHVs, the emergency housing vouchers. That's a real threat to the city of New York, right?
Yes.
Our families really needed those vouchers.
Right.
And we just HPD working with some great partners, nonprofit organizations, social service providers who were the ones who were finding the units and then providing those social service wraparound services to those families. And to be at a time now where those vouchers have been taken away and having to I don't want to say scramble, but having to figure it out. What other vouchers do we have in place that we can utilize to keep these families housed who are really facing some serious trying times?
Right.
And the one thing that they needed to just be stabilized was that housing voucher. And so seeing how this particular administration is moving, you see the detrimental impact it's having on the local municipalities, not just in New York City, but just across the country.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your honesty.
I don't want to talk about politics, Corey.
Okay, so now we're at the point at Corey's Corner, we're at the Spitfire round. We'll ask you 10 rapid fire questions. You give me one word answers. I know you're a lawyer. Y'all lawyers like to talk. Try not to talk too much. Just give me one word answers. It's a fun game.
I have
you
a
ready?
JD. I don't practice.
You ready?
Give me some grace.
Oh,
Go
you
ahead.
don't practice? Okay. You know that influencer, Dr. Chantel, she just got busted by saying she had a PhD. She's all over the news. Girl, you lied. You thought that pretty face and smile was going to get you by.
Well, I have my JD from CUNY School of Law with the motto of law in the service of human need.
Okay. All right.
Go CUNY School of Law.
I love it. Let's go. Let's go. Brownsville or any else in the world?
Brownsville all day.
NYCHA taught you strength or resilience? And you can say both.
Both.
One word to describe housing in New York City right now.
Crossroads.
Policy or people, which matters more?
People.
Biggest myth about public housing?
Violence.
I agree. I definitely agree on that. I definitely agree. Early mornings or late nights?
It's crazy. I have to do both. I'll say early mornings.
Okay, did you prefer early morning? Brooklyn food spot you swear by. Be careful, because you might gotta go back to Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Right now, at this very moment, I love going to Peaches.
Peaches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Downtown Fulton Street.
Yes. One leader who inspired your journey.
Alive, I would definitely have to go with Tish James.
Shout out Tish, my sister, our sister.
That definitely an inspiration since I was district leader 25 years ago.
Yes, yes. If not public service, what career would you have chosen?
That's a difficult one. You know what? For a hot minute, I worked at AOL in the legal department, deal management team, in copyright law. So I would say
Tech.
tech.
Yes. You've been making a lot more than you're making now.
You got
public
that
service.
right. America Online was the best job.
Okay. Thank you for participating in the Spitfire round. Nice. Appreciate that. Corey's Corner is powered by Story to Tell Productions. If you're serious about starting a podcast or taking your production to the next level, this is the team you need. Reach out to Story to Tell Productions and get it done the right way. Before we move forward, let me take you somewhere for a second. Everything we talk about on this show, power, accountability, loyalty, redemption, it's not just a conversation for me. I lived it, I earned it, I survived it. I've seen both sides of the system. I've walked the street, I've worn the badge. I've carried the weight of decisions that changed people's lives. That's why I wrote Once a Cop, The Street, the Law, Two Worlds, One Man. It's not just a book. It's the raw, unfiltered truth about the journey from the corners of Queens, New York, to the high-gloss hallways of One Police Plaza and the NYPD. The pressure, the politics, the purpose, the cost. And the documentary, A Cops and Robbers Story, pulls the curtain back even further. No headlines, no sound bites. Just the human story behind the uniform. Because behind every badge is a man. Behind every rank is a story. Behind every story is a choice. Now a word from our sponsor.
This is not your average vodka. This is Vodkila, a decade of cultured excellence. The best of both worlds. The true taste of victory. A delicious dyad spirit. The world's finest blend of vodka and tequila. Vodkila, the perfect blend. From rooftop parties to quiet moments with friends, Vodkila brings the flavor, the fire, and the unforgettable. So pour it, share it, live it. Vodkila. Visit vodkila.net and order yours today.
Hi, I'm Assemblymember Clive Vanell, and you got to check out Corey's Corner on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
You served as deputy leader and chaired the Public Housing Committee in the City Council. What was your proudest accomplishment during that time?
That was a great time. So many changes that we were able to make and so many things we were able to spotlight. And one of the things that I thought was very, very, very helpful was getting NYCHA to publish all of their capital projects across the city. We noticed that the School Construction Authority had all of their capital projects online where, it's like public information. You could just type in a school and information comes up, and the Parks Department even had something like that.
Right.
But for residents to be able to pull up their development and get a sense of what was happening at the project level, the contractors that were there, the vendors that didn't exist.
Okay.
And so now there's a capital project tracker that exists, and it tells you not just what's happening, but what the capital repair needs are. The last time there was a physical needs assessment done, what the numbers look like, and the projected issues and what's needed.
Okay.
And it's in real time.
What's one housing policy you fought for that people may not realize has had a major impact?
While at NYCHA, because I used to actually work at NYCHA. I was a senior advisor at the New York City Housing Authority. And a lot of what I saw up close, working within the agency, is what had a direct impact on the work that I did when I was in the New York City Council. And fast forward to when I was at HUD, there was a lot of preservation deals that we wanted to see happen, but it was so controversial, like the RAD and the PACT. People see RAD and PACT as privatization. But when I was at the New York City Council, I was able to fly out to London and do some tours with their social housing out there with developers, and got a sense of what does it really mean to be able to have no displacement and have new construction and families moving out of an old building into a new building without the displacement that you saw in Prospect Plaza, right, where the buildings were torn down.
Right.
And out in London, they would build on the adjacent land. Once the building is fully completed, they then would move one for one families into the new building. Then they would tear down the old building. But it was only after the new building was completed.
Right.
Then they would build on the site that was torn down and do it all over again.
Wow.
Right. And so that created this opportunity where families were able to see the new shiny building and move into it without any displacement. And so those types of ideas and concepts is what we brought back over to New York City. And it's controversial right now, but that's that Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea model that we were trying to mimic from what we saw in London.
Right.
And so there's a lot of pushback when it comes to RAD impact. But right now, one of the few tools that you see in order to actually preserve and renovate the public housing stock that we're seeing today. And so so that was from when I worked at NYCHA, when I got to City Council, and when I got to HUD, there was the trust bill in the state that was a little different from the RAD impact because this created a public entity and not quote unquote privatization.
Right.
And so just my time spent looking for best practices and lessons learned around the country and bringing those best practices back to New York City, I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, and pushing the public entity piece within the state legislature for the trust process is something I'm proud of.
I'm proud of you too. You worked across city, state, and federal. Where do you think real change happens the fastest?
City, state, and federal. I would say change happens city.
Yeah, they don't say all politics is local, right?
You can move money and allocate money and see it quicker on a city level. But I truly believe the more seniority you have on a state level,
The more juice you got.
and you can see some things move on the state level too. Look, seriously, look at One Brooklyn Health.
Yeah.
Right? That was quick.
Yeah. Well, you got the time. You can do it. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani has been pushing a rent freeze zone as part of his affordability agenda. And supporters say it could bring relief to struggling tenants, while critics argue it could hurt building owners and housing maintenance long term. From your experience in housing policy and management, how realistic and sustainable is a rent freeze in a city like New York City?
So although I do not want to at all opine on the rent freeze, because that's just not my role with the administration and the work that I do at HPD, I will say that I am very excited about Mayor Mamdani even saying that. I'm excited that he is worried about, there's caring concern about the average New Yorker who cannot afford their rent.
That's right.
Like, some people moved into these apartments and were barely making it and have seen their rent increase every single year, every other year, or even if they haven't seen an increase, right? The fact that they are just struggling paying, people are not paying 30%. Some people are paying 40, 50, 60% in rent.
That's right.
And so to have a mayor that is saying, wait a minute, we have to figure this out, that's what I'm excited about. But I truly believe that while we're also supporting tenants, we also have to figure out how we support the landlords who also have the same care and concern to have affordable housing units.
You also worked at the U.S. Embassy in Ghana. How did that international experience shape your approach to community development? The motherland. My friend just moved out there.
To Ghana?
Yeah, he called me, Boston detective, retired. He said, brother, you got to come home. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I left. No, he's in Joburg.
Oh, okay, South Africa.
He's in Joburg, yeah.
Okay. So when I moved to Ghana, West Africa, I'll just say this. So my role was to.
So how do you hold on? You just can't say that like just layman. So how do you just be like, all right, I'm going to Ghana? How does that happen? You're in Brownsville all this time, and you just wake up and say, I'm going to Ghana?
I did a lot of things in my life. I just turned 50 last week.
Congrats.
So I had an amazing experience. I was able to leave Brownsville for college, and I went to North Carolina A&T State University, one of the best HBCUs.
HBCU, yes.
And met my amazing husband. We've been married 26 years. And my husband is a U.S. diplomat. He's a member of the Foreign Service.
Okay.
Boy from South Carolina. And so he has an amazing career. He came in with Barack Obama and joined the Foreign Service, tap on the shoulder. And so he got an assignment to Ghana to serve in his role there. And I said, what would it look like for me to apply for a job with the State Department?
Right.
I actually didn't think I was going to get it, to be honest with you, from Brownsville. And I got it.
Yes.
And so I was able to move over to West Africa because my husband had an assignment.
Right.
And I got a job at the State Department. The job that I got, just so you can understand the dynamics, it was my role to complete the human rights report, the human trafficking report, and the international religious freedom report for the country, and translate that back to Congress for them to make the decision if they were going to provide development funds, diplomatic funds to the country based on how they treat their citizens.
Wow.
So that was my role there.
It's pretty
with the State
important role.
Department. And so the reason why I mention that is because the work that I was doing was working with local leaders, even law enforcement,
Right.
working with nonprofit or NGOs, non-governmental organizations,
Right.
who were applying for funds
Right.
from the government to then support their constituents or
Right.
support their citizens. And so it's no different from the work that I was doing in New York.
Right.
Right? Just on an international level.
Right.
But that experience allowed me to see not just what the United States was doing locally,
Right.
To how do you support your local organizations, but what are we doing globally?
Yeah.
And it was an experience I needed to have because out there, I was making sure that people had access to water, making sure that families had electricity, making sure that families had the resources to send their children to school. Get back to Brownsville. Do the families have access to clean water, running water in
Right.
NYCHA?
Yeah.
Do our families have electricity and power in the summertime, right? When there's extreme heat
Right.
and the elevators go out in those towers, right?
Wow.
That's electrical issues. So it was the
That was
same.
nice.
It was the
Yeah.
same.
Listen, you are amazing. From NYCHA to HUD to HPD, you've seen housing from every angle. What's one misconception people have about public housing?
One misconception?
Yes.
That is a bunch of people running around not working or taking advantage of the system, when I know personally that families that live in NYCHA developments are hardworking New Yorkers, some of the hardest working New Yorkers. And that's just a place for people to be able to afford to pay rent and have a stable home for their families.
That's it. I have friends that live in NYCHA. They're doing quite well, but they've lived there their whole life.
The rent is high out here.
And rent is high. Oh, I know. You said something important, so I got to tap into that. 'Cause you said one misconception about housing is there's a lot of crime. You're right. You touched on that. I was a commander of the most violent housing developments in New York City, and it's just like everywhere else. People don't understand. It's a small segment of people that commits crime. So the only thing is it's localized, because it's housing developments. It's not St. Albans, Queens, spread out, different blocks. But housing, it's really not a lot of crime in housing, especially now. I still look at the numbers once in a while. But people that don't live in there, they swear by it. They swear like, if I walk, Basic Projects is not far. I walk over there, I'm going to get robbed, raped, shot, killed.
They're not going to pay you no mind.
They ain't going to pay you no mind, I promise you. Oh, man. You've always centered around community voices. How do you ensure residents are actually heard in decision-making?
So when you look at a lot of the housing work that's being done now, like just policy wise, when you look at not just the New York City Housing Authority, but even within HPD, like our TIL programs, our ANCP programs, where we're preserving these old tenement buildings and working with families on renovating those buildings and then becoming co-ops, right? Even the Mitchell developments, when there's an opportunity for them to come in and preserve and renovate those particular units, they do it where the residents, the shareholders, the board members are at the table.
Nice.
They're the ones that are determining what the unit should look like, the materials that should be used. And in a lot of cases, they're part of the selection team to determine who's the developer that's going to be coming into their buildings to do the renovation, to do the work. And so talk about lifting up and raising up voices. That's real policy changes because people didn't listen to residents before. They would just come in, bulldoze, do whatever they want.
Right.
But now, in order for anyone to get a deal with the city, you have to have a community-based organization that's part of your team. You have to do community design meetings. You have to meet with the tenants and the residents and the community board.
That's
you have to
nice.
show proof of that.
Yes.
So I think because we have been talking about the need to raise the voices and include the voices of the residents, we're seeing that now.
That's great. I know they don't want to talk to my girl Lisa Kenner over at Van Dyke.
Shout out to Lisa Kenner.
I love Lisa. She is no joke. She was in my documentary, actually. She's one of the people that's in my documentary. Brownsville has faced long-standing challenges. What changes have you seen, and what still needs urgent attention?
So the changes that I've seen and some of the things that I did when I was on the city council and even at HUD was activating a lot of those vacant lots. At one point, I worked at the Brownsville Partnership with Chaco. And we took the opportunity to go throughout Brownsville and identify the different lots and have these coffee clutches with communities to say, what would you like to see happen on that particular block? And then fast forward, de Blasio came into office and he did the 100 Days Brownsville with all the agencies. And that then turned into the Brownsville plan. And the Brownsville plan included 4 massive lots across the district: Rockaway, Livonia, Mother Gaston. And those lots, they're now, as you can see, affordable housing buildings. One is being built now that will include a black box theater, like for the arts, with local based organizations that do dancing and just, different cultural arts programming. And then there's another one that's going to be a business hub, a business incubator. So all of the lots are focused on what the community felt they wanted to see happen. And one thing that I'm really proud of is the old 73rd precinct. It took a very long time. Dr. Egway owned that building for a very long time. And now we finally see that is going to be affordable housing with a health component built into the base of it. And they were able to utilize air rights from the Howard houses right next door to get more units on top. And so we needed to see intentional housing in Brownsville, but we also needed to see a lifting of the corridor along Pitkin and Belmont. And you're starting to see more attention and focus along those corridors, incentivizing the Pitkin Avenue bid, the Merchants Association along Belmont. And so I think Brownsville used to be a destination attraction, and you're starting to see that come back, where people are getting off the train and the bus and going to Brownsville because it's not that they live there, but they're going there to shop. They're going there to be entertained.
Well, that's good. Let's keep it right. Do you think the system is built to truly fix housing inequality, or are we constantly playing catch up?
And I think we're constantly playing catch up. I don't think the system is designed to really have a care and concern about black and brown folks, or low income families.
I had a conversation with somebody. We talk about this all the time. He was like, America is worth is this trillions of dollars running around America? Like, why is anybody hungry? Why is anybody looking for shelter?
There is no reason why one of the richest nations in the world, one of the richest cities in the world, right? We have the UN, we have Wall Street, the
Yes.
stock exchange,
We have it all.
but yet we have so many families and children and babies in the shelter.
It's insane
It is
to me.
insane. And so, but that is by design, right? It is by design.
Obviously.
You can just look and see how the housing projects were designed, how they were built to just keep people in a certain area. And even just down to the fact that the buildings weren't even facing the street, they were facing inward. Right? That is by design. And the fact that the same paint, the color, and the smell is used in the prisons up north
Yes.
is by design.
Oh, man. If you had the power to change one thing about New York City housing overnight, what would it be?
The affordability of it. If I could just change one thing, and it would be to make sure that everyone is able to live where they currently live, and they're able to pay a rent that is appropriate for the amount of money that they are bringing in to their household.
Exactly. For the young people, especially those growing up in public housing who want to follow your path, what advice would you give them?
So all the young people, the first thing I say is you were not placed on this earth for nothing. Like, you have a purpose, you have a reason, and you're here because there's a God out there. Call him what you want to call him. But there's a God out here that have made a decision for you to be here. And you could do and be whatever you want to be if you just put in the hard work and just put blinders on. Literally, like, just put blinders on and just keep pushing, and don't let anyone distract you.
I love it. Before we wrap, is there anything you'd like to share that we haven't covered?
I think we covered pretty much everything. But remember the J-RIP program?
J-RIP?
Yeah.
I started
It's
J-RIP.
so
Did you know I started J-RIP? People, let's get it right. I started J-RIP. You know what that was called? The Junior Robbery Intervention Program. I started it at PSA 2. I think I had 100. I might have had 105 kids in the program. You know, it's been a while. Maybe 75 kids, but they were responsible for like 400 crimes. So in order to be in J-RIP, you had to be a juvenile. You had to been shot at somebody,
or
had some robberies, right? And it was amazing that we had that program. So we put this whole program together with the cops. Like, we was going doing Christmas presents, giving the families turkeys, going to the schools. If they had a PO meeting, we was going. 1 year later, the New York Times, y'all can Google J-RIP New York Times. Do you know how many crimes those kids were responsible for?
0.
I don't remember the number, but it was less than like 20 or 10. Amazing when the police put resources together, because some of them kids, them families, they were just asking for help. They just needed a little help. You remember J-RIP?
So I remember it. I remember it so much where when I got to the council, I did everything I could to replicate that, because Glassberg had left and Jaffe had left. You know, like, everybody left.
Yeah.
And it's so, but it was a real program that made a difference, focused on the families, those young people who lived in NYCHA.
Yes.
And the jobs that we actually hired them to run the youth markets along Livonia and Rockaway.
Yes.
And the difference that that program made with those children who lived in public housing, like, stereotypes exist, but when you put programs and resources that make a difference, you see the changes that really need to be made.
It was so successful for me when I became the commanding officer of the 67th precinct. Within a week, I started a J-RIP team.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody knew about it. The chief, nobody, but I knew I had to keep crime down at East Flatbush. And I said, I was successful with this. This is the model. And I don't know why it didn't go citywide. Or
Well, we
maybe
know why it didn't, because it was a successful program.
Well,
That was just to your
listen,
point about,
I love it.
like,
I love it. That was good. Thank you. See, once in a while on Corey's Corner, y'all see I did some really good things. Okay. You know I started God Squad too, right?
I didn't know that.
Oh.
I didn't know you started God Squad. I didn't.
I'm the one. You think those pastors started?
I mean, I
They
know
not.
they didn't, but I didn't
They
know
couldn't
that.
put nothing together. Pastor Monroe's is coming on here soon. He was the first leader of a God Squad. So I was getting so many robberies and stuff with kids, I said, I need help. And so I brought all the pastors, all different denominations, Catholics, priests. I told my community, bring every one of them in here. I said, I had a meeting. I said, I need your help. And we started the God Squad. I said, I'll give y'all jackets. I go into the blue tape, yellow tape. You go into the tape. I said, what I need y'all to do, I need you to do the funerals for these kids that's getting killed, and you better not charge them no money. If somebody gets shot, I need you to come to the scene. I need you to pray with that family. We see what resources we could give those families, the whole nine. Eric Gons, Monroe's, all of them. Reverend Al Cockfield, they'll all tell you. They might not say it publicly, but they just actually gave me an award.
Look at that.
Yeah, I did a lot. I actually was the one who started the gun buyback program. Oh, I got a lot of stuff I started in the NYPD that I don't get credit for. Because they used to say, bring a gun to the precinct and we give you $200. And I was like, nobody's going to believe this. I said, we're going to start this over. Jeff Madry, myself, and Inspector Barrera from the 7-5 had a meeting with Congressman Ed Towns. And I said, this is what we should do. You want to bring a gun in? Let's do it at a church. We're going to do it at a church, soft clothes, no uniforms. Bring the gun in, no questions asked. I don't care if they got 10 bodies on it. You got to be transparent. We're not locking them up. Detectives got to solve crimes. We just got to get that gun. They did the first one. It was so successful. I saw Ray Kelly, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, a week before we even did it. He said, I had a meeting with Ed Towns, and he told me this idea that you want to do, taking these guns to the church. I said, yeah. He said, if it works, I'm taking the idea. If it don't, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, oh, God, please let this work. He's going to ruin my career. But enough about me. But I'm glad you got me to put all of those things on camera so people can see. Electronic footprint never goes away. Alicka, thank you for pulling up and taking the seat on Corey's Corner. Thank you for coming through and keeping it honest with us. Very honest. These are the conversations we need, right conversations that matter, because housing isn't just policy. It's people, it's families, and the future for generations to come. I love you, sis. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come pull up a seat on Corey's Corner. I really appreciate you. You always have a seat here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and your husband. I love you. That's what it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. For our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, make sure you follow, subscribe, and support. This has been another episode of Corey's Corner. Until next time, keep pushing, keep grinding, and always remember, it's not about where you start. It's always about where you finish. I'm Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Peace.
Special thanks to our executive producer, our engineers, and much respect to Corrupt Mob for making Corey's Corner possible.
Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues up, talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop, I used to hunt the